Hey, what's up, everyone? This is your instructor AJ for MBA 705 at Capstone. I've gotten quite a few questions come in via email. Also, since I'm speaking about your questions, please be sure to post all of your questions to me in the general discussion thread as it relates to the course, but anything personal, definitely email me. No question is out of bounds as it relates to the assignment. Now, I'm just going to go over just a little bit of this rubric here so you'll understand what you need to address and some of the things that you need to think about when you're addressing this. Now, this requires that you think back to previous courses and all the things that you've learned about making assumptions and planning for things that if they don't go well, assumptions that you've made, how you plan on mitigating the risk to make sure that your project is on time and completed on budget or under budget in project management speak. Of course, we're not necessarily looking at budget this week, but I'm just telling you something you need to keep in mind. So let's look at the first one that I've been getting the most questions about, and that is assumptions. It says critical elements. Explain the assumptions you have made in creating your business implementation plan, including a discussion of any factors that may affect the assumptions or the success of the project and how you plan for those contingencies. That's a fancy way of saying you're assuming a certain thing is going to happen, but if it doesn't, what will you do if it doesn't? The what would you do if it doesn't to make sure that your project is a success is the contingency. Here's a great example. Let's just say you assume that you will be able to hire this one person for the team, right? This person is a specialist in technology. But what happens if you are able to hire that person, but that person gets sick? And you have no one to take that person's place, then what happens? Well, what happens is, to make sure that your project is a success, is you've planned to have another person that you would bring in to take that person's place to make sure that your project is completed on time and within budget. Got me? So that's an example of an assumption. Now, moving on to the second part of this, cross-cultural, economic, and geopolitical factors. It says, in the second bullet point, discuss any cross-cultural, economic, or geopolitical factors that may impact the business environment and your concept. Okay, so this primarily deals with things that you cannot control. Those are the external factors. I think it mentions that here. Cross-cultural impact, business environment, operates. Okay. The external factors can be, let me give you an example of this. Let's just say you plan on releasing a new product or a new service in India, right? But there may be some economic issues going on in India that may make your project a flop. For example, say if you plan on charging X amount of dollars for your product or service in India, but you find out that there are some geopolitical factors that are affecting the economy. Say the economy collapses, and what do you do about the project that you've been working on to release this new product or service in India? What do you do? What do you do? Would that affect the success of your project? Absolutely. So you need to discuss that kind of thing, especially for all those who have selected to do release a new product in a different market other than the U.S. Okay, and it says cross-cultural. So, the meaning of your product or service, does it have the same meaning in the United States as it does in another country, or are there different cultures that would make selling your product or service, like say it's easy in the United States, but it's more difficult based on what people think about certain things in a different country. So those are just some things for you to kind kind of think about. Now, as far as the legal and ethical compliant environments, hey, this is self-explanatory. Explain how the project will operate in a legally and ethical compliant environment, including relevant laws, regulations, or patents or permits that may be needed or obtained, may be needed to be obtained. Let's just say if you want to open a mortgage broker company or a real estate company, say in Texas. Well, the laws in Texas will be different, say if you already running that same business in California. So you would have to know what the laws are in Texas in order to successfully introduce that new service and a whole line of products under mortgages and real estate in Texas than you would for California. So that is an example. So you move down, okay, how it's where it says stakeholder and customer diversity. Okay, outline plans for incorporating stakeholder and customer diversity in the planning and implementation of the concept. Okay, question, how does your product or service in your project for your concept, how does that affect the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? Have you clearly identified those stakeholders? Have you clearly identified who the customer is? Are you going to address it in your paper? Yes. Okay. And lastly, corporate social responsibility. What does that mean? Well, we know with Tom's shoes, for every pair of shoes that's sold, they give a pair. That's their give back. Like that's their social, that's their corporate social responsibility. That's their thing. Like with Starbucks now is all about going green. You've heard recently that Starbucks decided that they're going to get rid of plastic straws altogether by a certain year. And that is to stop its negative effect as a company on the environment. So those are the kind of things you have to think about whenever you're introducing a new product or service to market. Yes, I know that this is a lot, but let me tell you, by the time you get to your final project, this thing will be so polished, okay? And the milestones, they don't weigh super heavy on your grade. The final project weighs heavy on your grade, and so the milestones is where you get this right, okay? This is where you get it right, and the class is doing fantastic, okay? One last thing I'm gonna leave you with. Be sure to write 5 to 8 pages. Your grade will be affected if it doesn't reach that minimum length, and that's excluding the title pages, reference pages, appendices, all of that. Also, be sure to use 5 scholarly sources, okay? So I say all that to say you guys are doing fantastic. Just keep up the good work, and let's knock this out the park. Take care.